Environment Committee audiocast test.
Hi, folks. We're just going to wait a couple minutes. Actually, he has arrived. We don't have to wait a couple more minutes. We'll start as soon as our staff get in place. So I understand that traffic is very bad this morning, so there's one committee member who wants to be here to see our staff awarded. So we're going to start in probably 2 or 3 minutes, so you can continue talking. The chamber got so quiet, it was kind of funny. But we will start in a couple minutes. We just want to give everyone the chance to get here, as it is the last Environment Committee meeting of a term of council. So appreciate everybody's understanding. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's had a good morning. Want to welcome everybody to our Environment Committee meeting. So we're going to follow our agenda today as we do for every other meeting. But I want to take the opportunity before we clear our agenda this morning to say thank you. First of all, this was the inaugural Environment Committee of the City of Ottawa, a standalone committee. And under the great leadership of my colleague, Councillor Hume, it used to be part of Planning and Environment, and we've moved it to a separate standalone committee. So I want to take the opportunity, first of all, to thank members of this inaugural committee for your excellent work during the last 4 years. We actually fulfilled our legislative agenda a while ago, and we've been adding some things to it for the end of this term of council, but you should be pleased that we not only stuck to our term of council agenda and met it, but we also surpassed it in some ways. So I want to thank committee members, and certainly for the hard work that you've done collectively over the years. I also want to thank our city staff, and that includes not just operational staff from all the departments under the leadership, of course, of Kent Kirkpatrick and our Deputy City Manager, Steve Kanalakis, and Nancy Shepherd, who I understand is on her way down to see staff get their awards today. But I want to thank the clerk's office, and I always single them out at the end of every meeting to say thank you. When you walk into the chambers and you see a meeting like this, there's microphones and screens and people scurrying around, and everything runs really well. And the only reason why it runs well is because we have unbelievable support staff. And I want to particularly thank Carol Legault, who has sat to my right for the entire term, and we worked together last term as well, with other staff from the clerk's department, and of course Kelly. And I call them the rest of the sidekicks, because without these staff, we could not run a meeting. So I would like you to join me in acknowledging and thanking our staff. Sometimes you don't see what they do. I can tell you these people are sometimes here late at night simply posting agenda for us because the translation document was on its way in late. And they call daycare, and they make arrangements for their kids, or they don't go see a hockey game that night with their kids. And I think that kind of public service deserves recognition, and we could not have had such a great term of council without our support staff as well. So let's give it up for the clerk's office, please. I love you, Carol. I love you. And last but not least, before we start our agenda, I want to thank our community members. This chambers, for the last 11 years that I've been in office, and this is my last committee meeting as a member of City Council today, has been the site of a lot of awesome debates. And you know, we can all look back to last term. There were a lot of things that happened, but in particular this term, we have moved a legislative agenda where we have enacted significant changes to the way the city does business. So I want to thank the community for coming out. Whether it's a delegation who came to speak to us, whether it's the community who came to hold us accountable by being at these meetings, sending email, tweeting, whatever it is that you did, this committee benefited from your knowledge, it benefited from your advice, and I hope that during the next term of council that they are as fortunate as we were to have such tremendous community support. Whether we agreed with the issue at the time was not material. The fact that the public showed they cared was the big issue. So I want to say thank you again for people taking the time out of their day, and we know it is significant to give up a day of work or half a morning to be here. So thank you very much to everyone. So without further delay, we're going to go through our regular agenda, and then we're going to get to the best part of today's meeting, I hope. So item number 1, are there any declarations of interest? I see everybody here is interested to be here. So going on to confirmation of minutes of the 25th of August, 2014. Are those minutes carried? Carried? Thank you very much. So I'm going to hold item number 1, which is a presentation. We're going to give out Environmental Excellence Awards today, and we also have the great thrill as members of council and our community to see us nominate, or see the nomination and awarding of a Lifetime Achievement Award to an unbelievable member of our staff. So I'm going to hold that item. Next item on the agenda is from City Operations, the Public Works Department, Solid Waste Services in City Facilities. Is that item carried?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'd like to hold that item, please. Councillor Holmes has a question. Thank you. And then the last item is information previously distributed, what is the water roundtable. And this morning, that item is not on the agenda, but, and I don't see any members who wish to hold that. But what I'd like to do with the allowance of committee is just thank our staff for the work they did on the water roundtable. I see Leanne Snedden is actually here sitting in the front row. Leanne, if you want just to stand up so people who don't know you can actually see who you are. Leanne, I made a commitment at the beginning of the year that we would host a water roundtable, and I also made a commitment, much to Leanne's horror, during the roundtable, that by the beginning of the fall, we would have an update as to everything that happened in the water roundtable with a bit of a roadmap where future terms of council could go with that. So there were many staff that were involved with that, so I want to acknowledge them, and of course our mayor, Meredith Brown, who is our Ottawa Riverkeeper, and of course Jeff Westeindy, who was the founding member of the Windmill Development Group, who gave up a Saturday to come and participate in that. So there are many good ideas in that report, and I love the fact that we've captured almost verbatim some of the community comments. And one of the messages that we heard throughout the day that's in that report, and especially from our participants, was how important it is to deliver safe drinking water to the community. And we know in 2012 that the province made significant changes to the legislation, and quite frankly, we know from previous committee meetings, but also when we speak with our staff, and Mr. Weir is here today, that some of the standards that they set in this province are based on the good work that they do out in our own drinking water collection areas, whether it's at Lemieux Island or other areas. So again, I want to thank staff for a job well done. Thank the community who participated in this. And let's hold the boots to the fire of the next term of council. That's the great part of having been here. I can be a real mosquito in the sleeping bag, if you will, next term watching this. Because I hope that they take that Water Roundtable report and use that not only as a term of council priority, but I think it's time to move forward. And let's remember, folks, there are a lot of issues in the environment that we're here to discuss in this chamber, but when you look at the Ottawa River, the Rideau River, and our other river systems, we know that water is a precious commodity. Some would say it's the new oil, if you look at it from that perspective. So let's make sure that the next terms of council are actually picking up on that good work. So Leanne, I salute you today. You did a lot of work over the summer. You got your crew together to deliver a promise I made on a stage. So again, it's a little unusual to not lift the IPD and speak to it, and I thank committee members for allowing me that opportunity to pay proper thanks to our staff. But also, it's a little bit of a rattlesnake tail. I'll be watching. So thank you very much, Leanne. So hello again, everybody. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce our awesome Vice Chair, Councillor Moffat, who's done a great job. He's going to help me this morning present our awards. And I look around this chambers and I recognize so many faces, so it's awesome to see our staff here. It's certainly a privilege as a member of council and as the chair of this committee to actually announce the recipients of the 2014 Environmental Excellence Awards. Earlier this year, employees were tasked to actually come up with ideas from individuals or teams where they on their own, whether it was part of their job and they wanted to make it better, or they had an idea they brought to the table to find a way to make Ottawa even greener and to continue making us an environmentally friendly city. And it goes without saying, anyone who's ever visited Ottawa for the first time looks at this Canada's capital and talks about how green and clean it is. And it's not an accident. It's our great staff here who have helped us fulfill that. So we know there's always going to be a great deal of work that needs to be done to protect our environment. And we know that the need to take action has never been more urgent. And I point to our river as a good example of a broader policy issue. And I'm very proud of the fact that the City of Ottawa has such a proven track record of working towards sustainable solutions. We have received numerous accolades this term of council, and in this past year alone, we have been recognized as a city for trailblazing efforts in protecting and enhancing our environment. So one thing that we're particularly proud of is that we are one of Canada's greenest employers. Just think about that. We are a country of more than 30 million people. We probably have some of the most vast land areas and water areas you could possibly imagine. And this city
The corporation is one of the greenest employers in the entire country. How great is that from Canada's capital? Our staff are committed to investing in waste diversion and recycling. They want to create more options for cycling, walking, and transit, and promoting green construction. So let's make sure that we don't forget when we look at this city that there are a lot of people that have brought us here. And those accolades, I believe, are proof that we're on the right track. And we want to make sure we're continuing driving forward to a more sustainable future. We need to do this collaboratively, so it has to be done in conjunction with our council, other levels of government. Shall I talk about the river and the funding we need? I digress. City's residents, community associations, and of course, one of the most valuable resources at the City of Ottawa, our staff. Our staff work very closely with elected officials. They work with residents. They work with community groups. And together, our staff are leading the way for positive change, and they want to influence the way the environment's being dealt with. And I'm very proud of that, because it's only with this positive change through our staff and working together that we actually will see results. So with today's Environmental Excellence Awards, we are recognizing staff for their work in developing programs and initiatives for a cleaner, greener, and healthier city. And I want to say, when I first took over as chair of the Environment Committee, these awards were done late in the afternoon. They were in some room upstairs, and it was hours and hours of ceremonies. And no one ever heard about them. And I want to thank our human resources staff for allowing us to actually bring them into the chambers, to give proper recognition to our staff, and to do it in front of the media who are here to cover these events, because it's important that the public get to see what we're so lucky to see as councillors, and that is the great commitment that you bring to the table. So before we talk more about our great staff and their contributions, it's a pleasure for me to actually ask our city manager, Kent Kirkpatrick, to talk a little bit about our award categories. I have to say that Kent has been a huge champion of what we've done at the Environment Committee, but to the staff who are here, and I think you know this, there is not a greater champion of City of Ottawa staff than Kent Kirkpatrick, and we're all proud of our professional public service, and indeed, you are professionals. So Mr. Kirkpatrick, it's a real pleasure to turn the mic over to you, but not for too long.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and members of the Environment Committee. It's, well, I was going to say it's difficult, but it's certainly almost impossible to improve upon your excitement and your championship of staff recognition, in particular in this area. And I want you to know that I really appreciate it, as do all of staff. Employee recognition is a very, very important thing, and you are one of the biggest champions of it here at the city. Je suis heureux d'être ici aujourd'hui et de voir l'occasion d'exprimer notre gratitude envers les employés de la ville par le biais des prix d'excellence en matière d'environnement. This award offers us an opportunity to showcase and celebrate the city's successes around environmental stewardship. Do you mind holding those, Maria? Thank you. Even more, it's a chance for management to demonstrate our appreciation to city employees at the forefront of this very, very important work. This year's pool of nominees was impressive and very competitive. The selection committee had a difficult task selecting this year's winners from a total of 12 projects comprised of 89 employees. These nominees highlighted both employee initiative and leadership in projects that positively impacted and protected the environment. The Environmental Excellence Awards are not restricted to specific environmental programs alone. Rather, they stretch across a wide range of branches and departments. The award program is open to all employees who demonstrate leadership and success in any areas related to the environment. The variety of nominations is reflective of the city's collective responsibility to protect and enhance the environment that we live in. This year's recipients are being recognized in two categories. The first award is focused on community projects and initiatives that aim to reduce the overall environmental impact made by the entire city. And the second award is for internal initiatives that recognize efforts to reduce the corporation's own environmental footprint. In a moment, Chair McRae will speak more about this year's nominees and get to the exciting part of announcing the recipients. But in closing, I would like to take the opportunity on my own behalf, as well as that of our Deputy City Manager, Steve Kanalakis, who is with us this morning, and Nancy Sheppers, who Chair McRae mentioned earlier was to be here and wanted to be here, but Unfortunately, she's off at the NCC board at a short notice. Unfortunately, but handling a very, very important issue for the city with the NCC board and a decision they're making this morning. But she did want to be here, and she asked me to, I saw her earlier this morning, she asked me to express her congratulations to all the nominees and the recipients as well. So, on that note, I'll further Nancy's thought. Congratulations to all the nominees. It's an honor to be nominated for this award. So 89 individuals that have receiving recognition from their peers. Very, very important. So congratulations to you as nominees, and congratulations in advance to the winners that Chair McRae is about to announce now. Thank you very, very much. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Maria.
Oh, of course, we want you here. Merci, Kent. Thank you very, very much. So it's now going to be the fun part for us, where we get to talk about the nominees. So this year, there were nominees, many nominees, as the city manager said, in the community category. So the nominees were the Combined Sewage Storage Tunnel Project Team, the Ridgecraft Recreation Complex Canada Team, the Ring and Post Bicycle Rack Program Team, the Sewer Use Compliance Programs Team, and the Stormwater So I love sharing with this guy. The Stormwater Management Retrofit Program Team. So before we announce this year's recipients, I'd like to ask all nominees for the community category, if you could please stand up and stay standing, because we're going to ask Roger to catch a good snapshot of this. And I'd like everyone in chambers to join me in celebrating our nominees. So everybody stand up. If you're in the community category, I mentioned your project, stand up so that we can say thank you, please. Thank you. So we created a new category a few years ago called Honorable Mention, because I was a bit of a coward and couldn't just pick one winner because there were so many great teams. So we have 2 honorable mentions this year. So the first honorable mention goes to the Sewer Use Compliance Programs Team for the innovation and resourcefulness they have shown in their efforts to keep our rivers and streams healthy by keeping dangerous waste out of our city's wastewater collection system. So congratulations to that team. The second honorable... Just take a second and welcome folks. We're actually clapping because you arrived. The second honorable mention celebrates an achievement arising from an extremely successful public-private partnership. And it is my pleasure to announce the team responsible for the Ridgecraft Recreation Complex in Canada. This team rose to the challenge of incorporating sustainable and green practices, technology, and systems that allowed them to design a LEED Gold certified facility that not only reduces the city's environmental footprint, but we're also expanding recreation services to the community. So it's a great joy to actually see those 2 awesome services brought together. So thank you, and please join me in congratulating them. So now I'd like to announce the winner of the community category. And again, I'm going to ask those members to come down here when I'm speaking, and we'll acknowledge you. This year, for the first time, in addition to a framed certificate signed by myself and the city manager, we're going to introduce the inaugural pin. So everybody who wins today is actually getting a special City of Ottawa pin with a little green leaf on it that you can wear on your lapel, and it will be instant recognition that you won an environmental award. So thank you very much to our Human Resources Department for coming up with that idea. So the winner is the Ring and Post Bicycle Rack Program Team. Come on down. You're the first contestant at the Environmental Excellence Awards. So Ring and Post, I talk, you walk. Kind of like, never mind. Ring and Post bicycle racks may stem from a simple idea, but the reach is felt by every cyclist in the city. So you may recall back in 2010 that the city replaced all 4,000 of its on-street parking meters with solar-powered pay and display machines. And at the time, we recognized that cyclists use the old meters for parking, and this team wanted to ensure that the transition to those solar-powered machines would not cause a loss of bicycle parking. The team sought out environmentally conscious ways to dispose of the surplus meter posts. They researched bike rack designs, consulted on design preferences, and then they went out, in addition to all that, they identified areas where ring and post racks were in high demand. So they just didn't go do it. They actually went and figured out where should we do it to get the best bang for the buck. And if you think about this, by simply reusing this amount of city properties, so put aside the bike racks for a minute, but think about this. They actually diverted tons of material from going into the landfill. So in addition to them doing a great thing to reuse equipment and to be innovative with cycling, they actually kept material out of the landfill. So these repurposed posts now provide convenient and secure parking for cyclists. And simply by having a place to park your bike, we believe that it encourages our residents to choose the bike over the car when they're going to work. So the members of the Ring and Post Bicycle Rack Program team are, and if you're here, if you could just stand forward a bit or give a little wave so everybody knows who you are, so you get your proper props, are Riley Albert, Bob Anderson, Amin Ben Nassar, Robin Bennett. Okay. So as may have been written in the media recently, I run a tough meeting, so you got to comply with the chair, guys. Riley Albert, Bob Anderson, Amin Ben Nassar. I think I saw Robin Bennett in my periffs. Thank you. Peter Beulah, Scott Caldwell, Robert Charbonneau, Martin Chevier, Patrick Clement, Andrew Day, Emmerich Etmansky, Patrick Gorman, Mary Gracie, Luc Leroux, Claude Marchand, Cheryl McEwen, Lorianne McLean, Doug Robertson, Alex Sousa, Lloyd Stanford, Lindsay Thomas, Renee Young, and Paul Zaitun. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me as we hand out our awards to congratulate these awesome city employees who have shown their innovation, but they've shown their pride in what it means to be a true professional public servant for the City of Ottawa. So félicitations. So what we're going to do, we're going to listen to Roger because he knows what he's talking about when it comes to photography. I'm going to hand out one certificate just to hold for the photograph. The city manager's unwrapping one of our pins. We apologize, but we want to be able to show you what it looks like. So every member of the team will actually get a certificate with everybody's name on it. So just bear with us for a second, folks. And thank you very much to our team. This is good work, guys. He's got my 6 always, for anyone who watches NCIS.
No fans? No fans of NCIS?
Come on, Mark Harmon's dreamy. Okay. My husband's here. He'll attest to that. Moving now to the internal category. My pleasure to announce who this year's nominees were. And again, so hard to pick. I confess we have 2 more honorable mentions in this category because, again, not that I'm indecisive, it's just there's so many good people that you can't pick. So we have James Craig for the diesel storage tank upgrades, the Fleet Street turbine rebuild team, improvements to species at risk, protection and awareness of city projects team, the metal recycling at city facilities team, the remediation of residential wastewater cross connections team, no cheering, the remote yards and modified work schedules team, and the risk master upgrade paperless files and processing team. So once more, before I say who our honorable mentions were and who the winners are, I'm going to ask all those nominees whose names, either individually or teams I just mentioned, please stand up. Roger's going to capture this forever and all time. We want to say thank you. You are simply the best, and we appreciate your dedication and commitment to the public service. So stand up, please. So like I said, we have 2 honorable mentions, des mentions honorables dans cette catégorie. So the first honorable mention goes to the Remote Yards and Modified Work Schedules team. They developed a creative and environmentally conscious approach to work scheduling among staff responsible for maintaining hydrants during the winter. Imagine how horrible that job could be when it's minus 40 wind chill and they're actually going to touch things that might have water on them. Don't put your tongue on the hydrant, I think. But by promoting mobile work arrangements, this change not only increased staff efficiency, but it also reduced emissions associated with travel. And when you look at the push that you see North Americans to look at the mobile workplace, especially when we start the downtown disruption for light rail, there's nothing more important than keeping vehicles off our streets at different times of the day. And I certainly applaud that team for their willingness to do that. So thank you very much to that team. The second honorable mention goes to the Fleet Street Turbine Rebuild Team for the removal and replacement of hydraulic turbines from the Fleet Street Water Pumping Station. This was done in a very environmentally conscious way. And the most important thing, and I look at Tammy Rose, who's here, who is our manager of drinking water systems for the City of Ottawa, who is started with us actually as a student. This is the most important thing I'm going to say about what they did. And think Walkerton folks, think what's happened recently in the States. No drinking water supplies were disrupted when they did that. Just think about that for a minute. Recently in the States, they actually shut down the entire drinking water supply of a town because they couldn't contain the contaminants. So that says a lot about our team. They went and did this thing, but they did not disrupt our services. So félicitations to that team. So the winner of the 2014 Environmental Excellence Award in the internal category, and I'm going to ask if you're the winner to start making your way on down, is the Risk Master Upgrade, Paperless Files and Processing Team. Congratulations. Now, we're going to talk about what that means, but before we do, I'm going to ask Rick O'Connor to stand up, and he knows why I'm about to do this. So Rick O'Connor, if you want to just give a wave. So anyone who knows Rick O'Connor, who is our awesome city solicitor, and he's also our city clerk, he has 2 offices. And his first office upstairs not only is covered with paper head to toe, wall to wall, but when Pierre Paget left and handed the clerk's office to him, they had an agreement, and the agreement was, as was his agreement with staff, no paper in that downstairs office. Has anyone ever been to that downstairs office? Okay. So the fact also, his Twitter handle is Luddite No More. So the sheer fact that under his leadership, his team managed to embrace technology to the Luddite No More Twitter account, but also reduced paper is just simply marvelous. And I hope, Mr. O'Connor, that you take today's advice from all of us and maybe try and apply some of this paperless office to the clerk's office. Okay. So this team was nominated for the environmental awareness that is shown in what's called a Risk Master Accelerator. They upgraded that, which is claims and insurance software. So the team improved file management protocols, and they also drastically reduced fax and printing needs, and it incorporated more alternatives to save paper while improving the claims intake process. And you can only imagine, if you're a resident and you want to make a claim against the city, how important it is that we get that done quickly and efficiently and get it done well. Not only did this team do that, but they also did it by reducing paper. And as I said, I won't say it again, but the system upgrade introduced paperless storage, user-to-user information sharing, which further reduced the use of paper, ink, electricity, and storage. But the obvious environmental benefits put aside, the engagement of all team members developing these solutions are appreciated. And so I think that that's another important thing we see here today, are our city employees coming together to work as a team. So all members have embraced changes to long-standing business practices. You can only imagine all of a sudden going from A to B. And they also have allowed, through this use of technology, other staff members to become engaged across the department. And I understand that this department has also increased its overall efficiency, and team members are actually collaborating more. So I want to point that out as well. So members of the Risk Master Upgrade team are, and I'm going to ask that you come forward, give us a little wave, or show us who you are. Kevin Godby, Maureen Graham, Elaine Hales, Jason Hess, Mary Claire Lamb, Phil Landry, Heather McKinnon, Chantal Maisonneuve, Dawn Stevens, and Chantal St. Pierre. So merci and félicitations, congratulations, and if you can bear with us for a minute, we're going to do a quick photograph with Rogers. So thank you very much, congratulations. Uh-oh, he's trying to influence you already. Because I'm hoping Mr. O'Connor wasn't trying to talk you out of these good practices. Uh-oh. Did you guys hear that? 3 of his staff told him to clean up his office. We would concur. Although I'm still a counselor, he's still the clerk, I better toe the line. Okay, so again, everyone, I just wanted to point out again how these efforts on behalf of our staff, whether you received a formal award today or not, they really show us the broader efforts of our public service to bring everyone together, to try and propel best practices forward. And again, I want to offer my heartfelt thanks and congratulations to all the nominees, to the award recipients, and to urge you to continue pursuing and promoting these types of behaviors or practices that will have lasting impact. So it's not just for today, but it's going to be a generational change. And I just want to say so much how I appreciate the fact that as part of your job, you actually came forward and wanted to do this. So again, let's thank our staff who've done such a great job. We appreciate that. At the end of our ceremonies today, and we're going to do one more, our staff have a frame certificate for everyone who was a winner, and we also have certificates for all the nominees, and the winners will receive their pins. So if you just want to bear with us to get your loot, it's actually outside, and we'll make sure that you get it. So again, everyone, one more round of applause for our awesome public service. That includes you. Aha. So today, in addition to our Environmental Excellence Awards, we actually get to present a Lifetime Achievement Award. And I have to say, it's kind of fitting on my last committee meeting and my only time on council I get to do this. And it's someone who I absolutely adore. And when I say who it is, people are going to know why this person has done a good job. So I want to point out first and foremost that a Lifetime Achievement Award at the City of Ottawa is handed out rarely. Like I said, in 11 years on council, I've chaired 2 standing committees, and Housing First Term, we've never done this on any of my committees before today. This award is reserved for an individual who has concluded or is about to conclude a career that spans more than 10 years of service, and you can read into that dedication and loyalty, and commitment and passion. And it has to be to an employee who has made a significant contribution to the City of Ottawa, and not a flash-in-the-pan contribution, but over time. So someone who's actually walked that talk. And they certainly wouldn't have started doing this work expecting to get that. And when I announce the name of the recipient, you're going to know that this person actually deserves that. So I'll give you a hint. It's a he. And he has shown a deep dedication, don't burst out of the chair, to environmental sustainability throughout his career. And not only has he been pivotal in moving forward Ottawa to become a greener city, I would argue that without him, we would not be where we are today. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to ask my colleague, partner in crime sometimes, he will tell you, Paul McCann, to come up and receive a Lifetime Achievement Award. So let's stand up and give it up for Paul McCann. So Kent says his best side is his right side. If you're taking pictures, he wants you to take them from this way. It's not about you today, Kent. It's about Paul. Throughout his career, mostly spent with Public Works, and I'd like to acknowledge that the new General Manager of Public Works is here today, Kevin Wiley. Paul has demonstrated a personal commitment to environmental excellence with all of the projects he's been involved in. I love your team nodding. If you guys want to come up and stand with him, feel free. I just think it's so awesome. His name has been synonymous, for example, and I'll say these words, cleaning the Capitol. Who do you call? You call Paul McCann. And he was part of the team that received the 2012 Keep America Beautiful Award for his work and his team's work in engaging the community in litter prevention. And again, go to any other city in North America and show me a cleaner city than Ottawa. I challenge you. I challenge you. He has overseen efforts to provide residents with tools to reduce litter and graffiti and to beautify their neighborhoods. So think about that piece of it. He empowers. He's not just a champion, but he wants to empower. And how about our Adopt a Park and Adopt a Roadway programs? How successful are those? Well, come to River Ward, folks, and I'll show you how many people have adopted roadways and parks. And whose name is synonymous with this success? Paul McCann. And we know that he would never want to receive an accolade like this because he'd keep telling you it was his team, but the team needs a leader. So in all of his work, Paul has sought to foster productive partnerships with a wide variety of stakeholders. And if you look at the Cleaning the Capital programs, for example, look at the corporate folks that are at the table. And they don't just come for 1 year. They come for many years. And again, with Paul's leadership, we know that they like to work with him. Paul has built fantastic relationships with city staff, with small businesses, with the media, with not-for-profit organizations, schools, community groups. And he might add, more importantly, members of council, but I would say those community groups are more important. But you will not find a more respectful person in this corporation for working with councillors' offices than Paul McCann, and always there for you. Somebody needs a rake because they're doing something in the park, Paul will find a way to get it done. And I think when you look at Paul's engagement piece of what he's done, he's actually increased community awareness, not just with the Clean the Capital programs. We have so many people coming out collectively in Ottawa every spring and fall. They'd fill the entire city of Cornwall in some cases. So just think about that. Get a bus of people from Cornwall, come to Ottawa for the day, and go rake and pick up litter. When you think about that, think Paul McCann. And the adoption programs as well. He has certainly engaged the community by asking people to step forward. So I believe that Ottawa overall has seen soaring participation across all sectors to protect and enhance the natural beauty of our national capital because of these programs, which are under the leadership of Paul. Sadly, at the end of this coming February, and he kind of launched this on me on Friday during the United Way barbecue, after 30 years with the city, Paul will begin his well-earned retirement. So he gave his 6-month notice. Was it Thursday or Wednesday? Thursday. Okay, so he launched that lead balloon on Thursday. And when Paul looks back on his career, and those of us who had the good fortune to work with him, I believe he's going to see Ottawa as a much cleaner and greener city thanks to his efforts. One example of Paul's environmental commitment that I'd like to highlight today is his work with the Vanier Beautification Group. And I actually participated in that as the chair of the Transportation Committee last term, and I got to see firsthand, through Paul's commitment and dedication, he increased resident awareness through information. So he started out talking, listening. He provided resources, so he heard what people had to say, and he made a promise, and he delivered. But he also connected people together in the community. So again, engagement, hand it over to the community. Here's what I need, here's what I want, provide the resources, and then let the community take over. And I think that's why Vanier has been so engaged in that strategy. They've been excited. They've been working at the community level to reduce litter and graffiti. And I think as community members, when you can have a dedicated employee like a Paul McCann to call, knowing he is there and standing up for you and delivering resources, we know that reliability is a big component of this. And in 2013, this group recognized Paul with a special award to thank him for his efforts. So Paul, it is my honor, it is my privilege to actually, on behalf of the mayor and council and the close to 1 million people who we collectively represent, to actually do the same thing and honor you. So we would like to present you with a Lifetime Achievement Award to a man who considers the impact on the environment with each and every action that he takes, whether it's at work or at home. And yes, we went and found some things out. But he's also used his commitment not just to further his career and to be a great professional public servant, but he stands as an inspiration to people who are around him. He is a role model in the truest sense. He has walked that talk. And so we thank you, Paul, not only for your commitment to keeping Ottawa clean, green, litter, and graffiti-free, but I want to also personally thank you for having such an outstanding career with the City of Ottawa. So everyone, please join me in a round of applause for Paul McCann. Félicitations. So Paul has asked if he can say a couple of words, and I think given that awesome introduction, that it was only fitting to let him say a couple of words. So Paul, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Councillor McRae. I'm totally surprised here. I'm flabbergasted. I want to thank everyone, but I couldn't have done it alone. I have a great team. I've always had great support, so things just flowed well, and what can I say? I'm working with wonderful people that want to do wonderful things, so it's been great. And thank you for everybody that supported me.
Good job. We'll do a picture and then we're done. Well said, Paul, and at least for the next few months, if you need anything, you know where to call. I'll give you a cell phone number after the meeting today. So, Okay, so we just have one more thing to do, which is our formal photograph, and then we're going to get back to concluding our meeting today. So again, to everybody here who came down to take the time either for the first series of awards or for Paul's award, thank you very much. And I want to thank Kent as the leader of the bureaucracy at City Hall for allowing his staff to actually be here. There are some institutions that would not let their staff take 2 or 3 hours of a morning to come and participate in this. And I want to acknowledge that the notion of actually hearing about your colleagues and seeing your colleagues get recognized is very important as part of our engagement of the public service. And Kent, under your leadership, you've allowed management to allow staff to be here. And there's so many of our managers who are here today as well, and I want to thank them. Wayne Newell is here, the General Manager of Infrastructure Services, and I also saw Dixon Weir at the back from Environmental Services. Want to thank him. And again, everyone, it's been fantastic to chair this committee, to acknowledge our public service, but keep it going, keep moving it forward. So merci. So anyone that needed to go, who was just here for the ceremonies, if you've got to get back to work, you don't have to stay for the remaining committee. We've just got one item on the committee this morning. We'll get to it in a couple minutes once Chambers clears. Thank you very much, Cassandra, from our Human Resources Department for all the work you did today. Thank you. So now I'm going to get back to business. We have one held item, which is the Solid Waste Services in City Facilities report. And I'm going to introduce our new General Manager of Public Works, Kevin Wiley. He's here. So Councillor Holmes, you held the item. And questions over to Mr. Wiley, please.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just congratulations to both Public Works and the Environment for working so well on our own facilities and buildings. It really has been a great partnership. But my usual question of about 10 years remains, and that is, how are we doing at getting organics into the mid-rise and high-rise apartment buildings? So it doesn't really relate to city facilities, but it's my last chance to ask the question.
Yeah, Councillor Holmes, that is not on the agenda today, and unfortunately, Mr. Wiley can't.
Such a sterile chair.
Councillor Holmes, give me a second, please. So Mr. Wiley cannot answer that question right now, but with the will of committee at the end of this item, Councillor, because it's your last meeting, if committee members will allow it, Mr. Weir is here, or he was here, or we could ask him to come back and he can speak to that. But we will not be talking about anything that's not relevant to the report. So are committee members willing to allow Councillor Holmes to speak about an item that's not on the agenda today? It's at the call of committee. Okay. So if we have to do something procedural to introduce a verbal item, we will. But Mr. Wiley cannot speak to Mr. Weir's portfolio. Councillor, did you have anything else on this file?
And where is Mr. Weir?
He's coming back. He didn't anticipate he'd be speaking on another general manager's file. So we're calling him back to chambers after this item clears. Any more?
Thank you for your help, Madam Chair.
Okay, he is. We've got Caitlin working on that. Okay, you're welcome. Conseiller Darache. And thank you, Councillor. By the way, one of the initiatives in the report has to do with metal, and it was actually under your leadership that we pursued this. So I want to acknowledge, Councillor, the role that you played in getting us to this point. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I seem to recall in previous reports that we had a branch-by-branch breakdown, and I didn't see that in there. And I found that helpful because I can recall the last committee where we discussed it. You know, some branches were doing better than others. So am I missing that, or did we not, have we not broken it down by branches so that we can see the progress being made relative to the other branches?
Through the chair, just to clarify the question, you're referring to facility recycling?
Correct. So the diversion activities in the facilities.
Actually, through the chair, I'm not sure if we've had that before, but we'll look and follow up with you,
Okay.
Councillor.
So just so I'm clear, the report is on our facilities, so fire, libraries, parks and rec, the administration, the efforts they're undertaking for waste diversion.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, like I said, Madam Chair, I seem to recall that we had a branch by branch last time, and I found it very helpful because some branches were further behind, and I think it provides some incentive for those branches to make progress when they know that they're going to be under the oversight of this committee. So I'll look forward to that follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Councillor Chernyshenko.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Through you, just a few questions of clarification or better understanding of some of the things that we're doing in our city facilities. Battery recycling one is one I want to ask about diversion at special events, sort of pools and beaches. But I'll start with the batteries. I've been impressed. I keep forgetting as I collect my batteries in my basement in a jar, waiting for a household hazardous waste depot, and then I go to a library or I walk through the hall at City Hall and notice the container and go, right, I could have just brought it with me. It makes it so much easier for people on a small basis. Bring 6 or 8 batteries. Don't wait till you have 200 of them. How is public participation being? Do we have any kinds of sort of numbers or percentages around how helpful that has been in? Put simply, are people using them? We've got them. Is there a big take-up? Do we get much public feedback about the convenience of those?
Through the chair, I can provide you with one statistic, Councillor. In 2013, we collected 3,770 kilograms of batteries from those facilities.
And beyond it sort of being in guides or on the website, is there any sort of publicity that reminds people that they are there? Because you don't go to the library thinking about recycling batteries. You get there and go, oh, hey, I could do that. So I'm wondering what we might be doing to raise awareness.
Through the chair, to my knowledge, just signage at the facility, but it's maybe something we can take away and look at.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. The special events, pools, beaches, diversion of waste, trying to stream the waste that people have. I know from my own previous work with special events that the relatively easy part is to set up the bins to take it. The more difficult part is getting participants to actually put the right thing in the right container. There is usually a big problem. In fact, I think we had that problem in the city in our parks back, maybe it was 15, 20 years ago when there was a big initiative. How are we doing with so-called contamination of those streams, and are we having to end up tossing into landfill whole bags full of stuff that everybody had hoped was going to be diverted?
Through the chair, it is a challenge, as you point out. We are recycling over 50% of the material placed in the recycling bins, but contamination is an issue. A couple things we are looking at doing in the future as we extend this program is to potentially look at different types of containers that will facilitate that separation, but also look at signage and other markings that will help guide people. I've also been in discussions with the GM of Environmental Services, Dixon Weir, to see how we can best mitigate that, maybe at the sorting plant as well, so that we can avoid taking some of those recyclables to the landfill. But we are recycling up over 50%.
Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting point you raised. The jury is really out on whether sorting at the source, having the baseball parent, as they walk up to the receptacle in the park, put it in the right place, or quite simply our doing it back of house. The latter, you can have some greater certainty about what's being done, but it certainly loses the public education and participation message, though in the end what matters really is the diversion. So are we doing much of that then, so-called back of house?
Through the chair, that would have to be probably negotiated in the next MRF contract, because I think right now there's a level of contamination, although it is a small amount of material we're bringing, there's a level of contamination they have to abide by. That's my understanding. Perhaps Mr. Weir, when he gets back in the room, can answer fully.
There I was trying to avoid lingo like MRF and back of house, but it's already slipping in. Finally, again, from my knowledge of previous events, signage really is critical if you want people to participate and do the right thing. The experience usually is that if you make them convenient, people will try to do the right thing, but then at that very last step, the confusion of where does the hot dog bun I didn't finish go? This container, I'm not quite sure. Is that compostable or recyclable? It's essential that it be clear both in the consistent signage and the sort of listing. Have we? Yes, there is. Have we experimented with different types, or has it been sort of ad hoc so far?
Through the chair, not at this time. That's something we'll be looking at, and I think from my experience, pictograms probably work the best, and also ensuring that the recycling and garbage bins are relatively close proximity so that people don't take their garbage and put it in the first bin that they come to.
Mm-hmm. Great. Glad to hear you're working on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments about the solid waste services at city facilities? Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Wiley. I just want to point out in that report that there was your commitment to come back towards the end of 2015 to find ways to identify better ways to recycle, but certainly want to acknowledge in this building that we have gone as zero waste as possible. I know that a couple of our councillor colleagues on the second floor, and I won't mention anybody's name, didn't like the idea. Heaven forbid that we use organics in our offices. So thank you to your staff for making sure that we have stuck to our commitment in this building. But I do think that other buildings across the city need to go that route. And if Bay Street can do it and a bunch of lawyers can stop bringing garbage to work and recycle more, there's no reason why City Hall in all of our buildings can't do it. So thank you. And on that item, is that received? Received. Okay, thank you. So now, to be procedurally accurate, committee has agreed to waive the rules to add an agenda item. I'm going to ask Councillor Holmes, because it's your item, that you move a motion that is very succinct, and it's simply to add a opportunity for a verbal question period, if you will, to the General Manager of Solid Waste Services with respect to organics recycling in multi-residential buildings. Is that okay with you, Councillor?
Inquiries that happens at the end of the meeting.
We could, Councillor Holmes, but if we do that, Mr. Weir is under no obligation to answer your question today. So if you'd like him to come back, that's fine. I'm in the hands of committee. Either we have him here today to speak to it, or he can provide an answer in writing later on. It's your privilege, Councillor.
Well, I'll move the motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, so moved. Is that motion carried? Carried. Any dissents? Okay, seeing none, unanimous. So, Mr. Weir, apologize that you haven't had the opportunity to prepare for this, but I do know that you are familiar and up to date on this issue. So, Councillor Holmes, you have the floor.
Mr. Weir, it's my usual question that you're quite familiar with, and the question is, how are we doing with green bin employment in mid-rise and high-rise apartment buildings?
Chair, through you to the councillor, as you're aware, the service is essentially made available to multi-residential properties on the basis of the property manager owners expressing an interest. To that end, we're certainly making ourselves available, and we'll come and meet with property managers to work with them to make sure that service is available. And certainly we're providing the service on that basis, on an opt-in basis, as we're contacted by the multi-residential property manager or owner.
Can you tell me what percentage approximately of high-rises and mid-rises are using green bin?
No, I don't have that information available this morning at my fingertips.
No, but do you have that information?
Certainly, yeah. I could provide that information to you. I'd be pleased to after committee.
Good. Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much, Councillor. Don't go anywhere, Mr. Weir. So are there any other questions on this agenda item? So thank you very much, Mr. Weir, for that update. I've spoken with Mr. Weir. I'm not done. I've spoken recently with the manager of Solid Waste Services, Ms. Journeau. There had been an inquiry in my ward by a resident living in a multi-res building who wanted to green bin recycle, and Ms. Journeau was fantastic not only in getting back to me with the answer, if you get curbside recycling at the City of Ottawa and we offer container pickup, we will make that service available to you. So I think the message has to be to anybody living in multiple residential buildings in Ottawa, if you want green bin service, put the pressure on your landlord. Don't let them be complacent. So we're here to offer the service, and I know, Mr. Weir, that Ms. Journeau not only is holding these landlords accountable, because part of the contract with the city is that they have to offer that service if it's asked for by a resident once we provide the pickup. So let's not forget that the landlords and the superintendents and the building managers and the property owners, they also have an obligation. It's not always about government. We're providing the service, but the people that have the obligation, they should be held to account by the people who are renting or who own condos in these buildings. So I see no other questions to Mr. Weir. So is that verbal item received? Received. Thank you. Okay, so are there any notices of motion for consideration? No? Are there any inquiries? None? Any other business? Okay, I'm afraid to even acknowledge him. Councillor Moffat has other business. I hope it's not monkey business, Councillor. Can I have a mic, please, for our Vice Chair, Councillor Moffat, please?
Thank you. I just wanted to just take a quick second, as this is the last meeting of Environment Committee for this term of office. I've had the pleasure in the last 4 years of serving as Vice Chair of this committee alongside our Chair, Councillor McCrae. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for your commitment to this committee over the last 4 years. We've had a lot of interesting files that have come through this room, and on not so attractive items like garbage collection and water and sewer related items. And we certainly, in this kind of committee, we do a lot of heavy lifting of a lot of items that people maybe the items aren't so glamorous. And it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you over the last 4 years, and your leadership on this committee has been appreciated. And I think certainly in the next week we wish you the best of luck in your whatever that comes after November 30th. Yeah, exactly. That's right. But no, I think whoever comes into River Ward for the next 4 years, if they are committed half as much as you were to the job and to the ward, then your residents will be in good shape. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moffat. I didn't expect that. I didn't know what to say, but thank you very much for that. And I have to say a highlight of this term was going to see Shiga and Stella up at Trail Road. So hopefully whoever chairs this committee next term will make sure that former councillors get invited to go see Shiga and Stella. Okay, so there's no other business. Again, thank you, everybody. Appreciate the work that we've done collectively. We've now come to the end of our agenda. Committee is now adjourned. And for the sake of a reporter whose name might rhyme with Kianello, committee is adjourned.